How's it going, everyone? This is Adam from Slurve, Ship My Money on DraftKings, and I'll be breaking down today's very ugly slate of Major League pitchers for you. I'll start out with a couple of guys that I would use in cash games if I was going to play cash games today, which I'm not just because I hate almost all the pitchers. And then I'll go into a couple of guys that I like for GPPs today, and I'll finish up with the main stacks that I plan on using tonight. So if I were going to play cash games, my first guy would be Jake Arrieta at 13,800 on DraftKings. He just has a much higher floor and much higher ceiling than anybody else on this slate. And even though his price is really, really expensive, I think it's gonna be tough to make up ground just because the guy's priced just below him, like Sonny Gray in a decent matchup. He just doesn't have the upside to come even close to what Arrieta can do. And in a sport like baseball where variance is really high, especially among hitters, it's like, yeah, you can save a little bit of money going from Arrieta to Gray, but it's just so unpredictable that I don't think you're gonna make up those points with hitters a high enough percent of the time that it's worth it. And so my game plan would probably be to go with Arrieta and then just try and get a cheaper pitcher who is unlikely to completely suck and just that won't blow up, and then you'll still have some money left for hitters. So my second pitcher for cash games today would definitely be Marco Estrada at 7,100. He's a minus 141 favorite for Toronto. Chicago's got a really good record this year, but they are striking out about 18% of the time against righties, which isn't high, but again, this isn't even really a high upside play as much as I just think he's the best pitcher for his price. The White Sox have a 298 WOBA, 89 WRC plus so far against righties this year, so they haven't been a great offensive team. And Estrada's peripherals are bad, but over the course of his career, they're always bad, and he always outperforms them because he gets a lot of pop-ups and weak contact. And at 7,100, he doesn't need a ton of strikeouts to, still get what you need from him if you were to pair him with Arrieta, assuming Arrieta has a good game. So that he would be my second cash game option if I were going to play cash games. But like I said, I'm just completely avoiding them today. And so, sorry about the dog barking. And so for tournaments, I still like Arrieta a lot. Just like I said, his upside is so high, and it's going to be tough to make that up with anyone else. I like Jose Barrios making his major league debut today for the Twins. He's one of the top pitching prospects in baseball. Last season, he made 12 starts at AAA. He struck out 9.87 batters per 9 innings. This year, in 3 starts at AAA, his K per 9 is up over 10.5. So he, at least at the AAA level, has shown a lot of strikeout upside. He's only priced at 6,900 today on DraftKings. He's a small favorite, minus 113. The Indians so far this year against righties have been actually really good, but looking at their lineup, I don't really believe that is going to hold true. And if you go back to last year against righties, they were league average. They struck out about 19.5% of the time, 315 WOBA, and 100 WRC plus. And on a slate like today, where you have a guy in Barrios who nobody really knows what to expect of him since he's making his major league debut, he'll probably not be really highly owned, and he at least has upside, whereas most of the pitchers today don't, because honestly, most of them probably aren't better than your average high school pitcher. So he's someone that I'll be targeting a lot. He's definitely one of my favorite plays today. And then Gio Gonzalez in that mid tier between Arrieta and the cheap guys. I like him against Philly. He's priced higher than I would like at 9,600 on DraftKings, just because he generally doesn't go deep into games. I think he'll have a good start. The Phillies can't really hit. Gio's been pitching pretty well this year, but you're only going to get 6 or 7 innings out of him most likely. So at 9,600, I just don't love him, especially because if you pair him with Arrieta, it's just going to be really hard to get any bats that you want. One last guy who I'm not excited about at all, but he basically is just so cheap, Nick Tropiano on the Angels. There's nothing about his matchup that makes me like it, but at 5,600, he can go out there, throw 5 innings, hopefully give you 12 to 15 points, and then just make up for it with bats, hopefully. One really interesting GPP pitcher for me that I haven't completely decided what I'm going to do with him, but Matt Moore for Tampa Bay. The Orioles have been hitting really poorly lately. Yesterday they actually hit some balls hard, but it didn't work out. But just in general, they have one run, I think, over their last 3 games, and they're definitely an offense that is hot and cold, and right now they're ice cold. Matt Moore, his peripherals aren't really good, but he is better against righties since the start of last year. And part of that's probably because his best pitch by far is his cutter, which is more effective from a lefty on righties. He strikes out almost 22% of righties he faces compared to like 14% of lefties going back to last year. And the Orioles are a very right-handed heavy lineup. So this is a game where I could kind of see it going one of two ways, where either the Orioles break out or Moore has a really good game. But Vegas only projects the Orioles to score 3.3 runs. So I'm leaning toward having some exposure to Moore and just hoping that's he has a good game. So he does have that strikeout upside in this matchup with the Orioles. And the Orioles last year against lefties were really bad. This year they've been really good. They did make some changes in the offseason, bringing in Trumbo, as a good right-handed hitter. Joey Ricard at the top of the order is also right-handed. So it's definitely possible that they're just going to be a good team against lefties now. But they have so few at-bats so far this year that I still think it's worth throwing Matt Moore out there, in some lineups and hoping that, he has one of his big games like he had a couple starts ago where he comes out with, 8 to 10 strikeouts. So for pitchers I want to target, there's just a lot of guys that I think stand out as good targets tonight, but a lot of the games, the totals are lower than I would expect, and so there's a few that stand out to me. Coors, obviously, I talked about it yesterday too. People just still aren't playing it enough, and neither of the pitchers going today are really great pitchers, so that's still somewhere that I'm going to target. Colorado and Pittsburgh have the two highest projected team totals today, with Colorado at 5.3 and Pittsburgh at 5.2. So that's somewhere I'm going to have a lot of exposure just to that game in general. And then also the game in Arizona, it's just been a launching pad in general. It hasn't changed this year. The Cardinals are running out Adam Wainwright, who has been awful this year. His ERA is up over 7. His xFIP is almost 6, so it's not even like he's just getting super unlucky. He's just been really, really bad. And Arizona's projected for 4.8 runs at home. They have a bunch of guys in that lineup that can hit. So they're a team also that I definitely going to have a lot of exposure to. As well as the Cardinals, just because they're a right-handed heavy team facing Patrick Corbin in a really good hitter's park. So both of those I'll have exposure to both teams. But then a couple of sneakier stacks. Yesterday Boston faced Matt Whistler, who is a really bad pitcher, and they were barely owned. Today they face Bud Norris in Fenway, so it's a better hitting environment. David Ortiz will probably be in the lineup. I could see their ownership ticking up a little bit since they scored a bunch of runs yesterday, but in general, I don't really see why their ownership would be a whole lot higher, considering they had a great matchup yesterday and nobody played them, and then today they get Bud Norris, who he's really bad, but so is Matt Whistler. So I don't really know that their ownership will get that much higher, especially with the game in Arizona and the game in Colorado being really popular. So, and they have the 4th highest projected team total of the day at 5 runs. They've been crushing right-handed pitching this year. Bud Norris is bad against both sides of the plate. It's just a spot where as of right now at least, I could see it being very, very under-owned and something that would just be a great GPP play. And then the other team, they're not projected for as many runs. They're only projected for 4.4, but I have some interest in the Toronto right-handed hitters today, in particular Donaldson, Bautista, Tulo, and Encarnacion. They're facing Jose Quintana, he's not a bad pitcher, but he's a lefty, and they're at home, and Toronto at home against lefties is a spot that everyone targets all season, but on today's slate, it shouldn't be that popular, so you're going to get it at a discount in ownership. And if you look at Quintana's pitch arsenal, he's fastball, curveball, changeup, cutter. Encarnacion, Bautista, Tulo, and Donaldson throughout their careers all absolutely destroy his pitches, basically. They're all good fastball hitters, obviously, but he throws 30% curveballs, which I don't know for sure, but I assume that's lower against righties. But he'd be replacing it with his cutter, most likely, and they all just absolutely tee off on cutters and curveballs throughout their career. So it's a spot where it's risky because they're facing a good pitcher and there's a lot of bad pitchers going today, but it could also really, really pay off, because all of those guys just have so much power and so much upside. So, those are the guys I'm looking at for pitching today, and then the pitchers I want to target. As always, I'll be in Slurve chat up until lock, so, just come over there and talk about baseball in general, and good luck tonight, guys.